Hello. It's August 29, 2023. It's a SIG Node weekly meeting. Welcome, everybody. We have not big of an attendance. I think it's the last week of summer, like before many kids go to schools. So I think that may be the reason. And also there is a Google Next coin, so many Googlers are out. Is that we still have a very large agenda, so let's get right into it. First is Canon.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think about a month ago, I brought to this agenda I was gonna take over the pod ready to start containers kept for beta, and I have a PR to update the kept for beta, and I was hoping to just get a reviewer / approver on that if possible, and then also to see about, I guess maybe, I don't think this meeting we are going to talk about 1.29 yet, but I was hoping to get this on track for 1.29. But I guess I don't know when that is. Yeah, I don't know when that's happening quite yet.
Yeah, we start to have planning maybe starting next week when there will be more people on a meeting. We discussed it with Ms. Mrunal already. So yeah, it's time to bring it up, and if you think it's ready for 129, it's great. And I see you posted a couple of scenarios that is being used.
Yeah, you had a suggestion to update some use cases that I found useful, so I added those, and then I updated the KEP with some of the details since 1.25, just to make it more clear about what the progress of what that KEP has done.
Outstanding. Thank you.
All right.
Is there any questions from audience? If not, let's move forward. Kartik.
Hi, actually, Karthik has not joined the call, and I would be asking a few questions on behalf of Karthik. So, we actually wanted to schedule a meeting to discuss further on the dynamic node resize KEP. So, would it be appropriate if we could have this meeting scheduled sometime early next week, provided that SIG node has no agenda or plans which might hamper the meeting schedule for SIG? I mean, specifically for this KEP.
It really depends on who you want to have on this meeting. Do you mean you want to have bigger presentation during SIG Node meeting, or you want to schedule something separate?
We would just like to schedule a separate meeting for this to discuss further on this KEP. So that is the expectation we have, so that we could combine, get an idea together and continue to work on this KEP to get this rolling.
Sure. What Peter did with GC working group, like image GC, he sent a what's called the scheduling thingy, scheduling up. Peter, remind me. Doodle. That is it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So you can set up a doodle and suggest times, and whoever interested can join. I think early feedback is we already have in place pod vertical autoscaler feature that is in alpha. The problem with this feature, and this feature enables dynamism in how pods are allocated, and this is another part of dynamism. And I think feedback was a couple of releases back that since we have in place vertical autoscaling implemented, then we'll open door for more dynamism because we already have a way to adjust things on the node side at least. The problem is that in-place vertical autoscaler still has a lot of depth. We need to refactor some of the logic in how allocation happens, and this depth is still haven't paid for. So we still have this feature in alpha, and we still have outstanding refactoring to do. That will complicate implementation of dynamic node resize, because with outstanding refactoring for one KEP, introducing another KEP will be quite complicated and may not be reasonable. So you'll get a lot of pushback on code front as well, just for you to be aware of.
Yeah, true. I totally agree with that point of yours. So we are okay with that. So we'll just keep the discussion in progress, and probably once there is stability and some conclusion on in-place pod autoscaler, then we would probably proceed or work on dynamic node resize, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And thank you for pushing it forward. I think the feature is required by many. So, and I think it's another shout out, like since we're talking about in-place vertical data scaling, if anybody interested to move it forward, please step up. I think VNA is not going to move it forward, at least anytime soon, from what I heard. So if you want to take over and make progress on that, please step up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for bringing it up. Next is a big topic of API for pod readiness information. Take it over.
Yes, hi. So I would like to propose, let's say again, a new API for kubelet. So we've been working to add answer some questions. So we would like to propose the API that will serve the local pods information about its readiness. We would like this API to be exposed via kubelet because kubelet owns a lot of conditions that are regarding the pod state, the status which they are. Kubernetes is watching the pods that are running. And we think that this API would be a benefit to decouple the pod's readiness from the control plane. And also adding the new watches to Kube API is a huge scalability issue. So if some workload needs only to watch the pods which are running on the actual node, this is a good benefit. So we can read them directly from the kubelet. There are already some APIs in kubelet, and for example, there is a pod resource endpoint, but actually this endpoint would serve the information about these local pods which are owned by the kubelet. So that's why I think that we should expose a new one. And we know that there are some issues with kubelet, for example, the restart. So we need to take care of this issue. And first of all, we think that this API should return the actual known state by kubelet. So when implementing this API, we need to make sure that when the API is ready to serve the data, kubelet knows the information about all the endpoints, because we know from this pod resource endpoint that there's been the issue that kubelet is serving the information when it does not know in which state the pod is, and by default, if kubelet doesn't know the information about the pod, it marks that not ready. So we know that we need to cover this issue. I said at the beginning that we want this API to be, let's say, independent from the control plane availability, because it might happen that control plane is unreachable or is down. We know that control plane is the brain here in Kubernetes, but actually for the brief moment when the control plane is down, the user workload might be working fine, and there might be some workloads that are interested only in the current state. So we think that if the kubelet is running and it's healthy, even if the kube API is down, this API should return the current state that is stored in the kubelet caches, not even if it might not be reported to the kube API. And this API should be rate limited, so we don't want to put very big load to the kubelet. And I tested it briefly on resource consumption. So if we run the gRPC request with let's say one request per second, it shows no resource consumption increase. So it is, let's say we can add more load, it is okay. And we would like to use gRPC because we think that streaming, we can version it, strongly type, and we can leverage the streaming. So I put some proposal like how would it looks, but we are interested in returning the conditions that are owned by kubelet. So from these conditions, the workloads may know in which phase it's pods and if it is ready to serve the traffic or not.
So I think, can you give more details in the proposal about the kind of workloads that need to know this information?
You mean the proposal about workloads which will be using this?
Yes,
or
which will, yeah, what are those workloads doing?
what? So I think that there might be different works. So for example, which wants to understand if the pod actually is ready to serve the traffic. One of the examples might be, for example, that Cilium would like to understand if the pods are ready to receive the traffic, or they are in draining state, or for example, starting. I think that there might be other customers might want to, for example, run some workflow that understand in which phase their pod is, for example, for better custom monitoring. So I think that this API might have, let's say, various user stories, but overall, I think that for customer, there will be just, let's say, one or two this pods, because they will be more like system pods. They so it's not like the customer will run these pods and expose this data outside. This is something that should be keep on the node.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe to provide just a little bit more context, we're trying to bridge a gap in reliability, performance, etc. Where right now, to understand if your workload on a node today, to understand if another workload on the same node is healthy, you need the API server to be up. You need to go all the way up to control plane and then back. And that's not really helpful when Kubelet is sitting right beside you and is actually doing the health checking and has the most recent information. What we're particularly concerned about is a scenario where control plane is unavailable and we want to understand the health of a pod on the same node, but we can't get it because the control plane is not there. But we have, all the information is sitting right there beside us. So that's really what we're trying to resolve. The example Katarzyna mentioned of Cilium or, a data plane, just wanting to understand, for example, the health of an endpoint on the same node could be very helpful and provide just a bit more reliability and remove that kind of control plane dependency where it doesn't need to exist.
Yeah, I think adding those use cases will be helpful, like to motivate why we are adding something like this. And the second thing is, I believe like there was a discussion with the architecture SIG on this proposal whether to add gRPC or to add more first class API. So maybe an alternatives considered section and pros, cons, why do this versus a full on local API server versus something in between like a REST API, which is not as heavy as the full API server, will be useful to evaluate. Like what are the security implications? Like this will require mounting a socket. So the user would need more privileges on the host versus if we have local REST API. What are the pros, cons? I think will be useful.
Yes, so yes, we proposed this to the SIG Arc and they asked about this. So we look at the HTTP API, but actually read-only port is being, let's say, considered as a not safety, and is for some workloads is being shut down. And to access the HTTP API, we need to use the authenticated port, and the authentication goes straight to the control plane. The credential can be cached. By default, is I think 2 or 5 minutes. But like I said, we wanted to introduce this locality. We wanted so the workload is on the node and is accessing. So we thought that using the Unix sockets and to access the Unix socket, the workload so it needs to be on the node. So we thought that this will be beneficial because of this control plane dependency issue, and it will be we believe that it will be easier to version this API with gRPC than with HTTP.
Okay, fair. I think it'll be useful to capture those alternatives and why
In the doc,
we,
okay.
we want to propose this as a solution. Yeah.
Okay, I will add this to the doc.
Maybe just a high level, that's very good feedback. Thank you. Just a high level kind of procedural question. At what point should we move forward with, actually translating this to a PR on k/enhancements, like actually start spinning up a KEP itself for this?
Don't think you should wait. I think you have this, add the alternatives, and you can create that PR because you want something. If you want to target 129, you should already start working on that.
Great, thanks.
Or just if you expect more changes, it's easier to do in Google Doc, and discussions are easier in Google Doc. But yeah, any moment now.
Perfect, thanks.
Is there any more questions? Mike, you turned on the video for a second and then turned off. Did you want to ask something or just mistake?
Yeah, no, I was curious about the scope, and then he said Xylem, so eBPF, I get it. I didn't understand why they wanted to be basically a read-only proxy of the API server, and I don't think it's just to be a read-only proxy, but we'll see what happens with the API.
No, so this really is intended to be read-only and only a very small sub. Honestly, so this is coming from SIG network perspective, and all that we're really looking for is information on readiness. Though I can understand how, like, once we open this little door, it could expand beyond that. But for our use case, that's really all that we want.
I mean,
so just network readiness of the pod network and or other networks that have been created inside of the pod.
Yeah, right now it really is tied to just health checks, but I can understand how other information could be useful to other components.
Right. We have other paths to do, network readiness checks. Maybe we should talk about that. I don't know if you've been working with the SIG network team that's doing some additional design changes to support multiple networks and updates, that sort of stuff. They're not necessarily all the API server, so
yeah, no, that's fair. There is the parallel work on multi-network. Yeah, I think this is orthogonal because again, at this point, we just care about, is this ready or not, and we don't want to. We're trying to remove API server dependencies where they don't need to exist. That's it. Like if we get a support ticket or something like that, API server was down and therefore my endpoints are never, getting traffic, or they are getting traffic, but they're unhealthy. Like just trying to avoid those kinds of disconnects.
So a non-HA API server environment where you can't just switch over to the backup kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, there are any number of reasons when you have enough things, enough scale, there are any number of things that could go wrong. And so just providing just a little bit more reliability, I guess. And I know Kubelet also has things that could go wrong on it. But trying to keep dependencies as local as possible.
Okay.
I wanted to add a quick point, just that, there's other components I think that are relying on the HTTP pods endpoint today, right? And there's a lot of problems with that endpoint. One, namely, like it's all in big JSON blob. We've had like cases of metrics agents and other things reading those and actually switching over to read from the API server just because performance inefficiencies in reading the HTTP API. So I would like maybe to consider also to make it so that, we only have, I understand the network readiness case, but maybe there'll be other use cases that we'll want to follow up. So if we can kind of keep it a little bit more generalized in the sense of if we want to add that type of more local pod information later, right? We can expose that. Might make sense. Because I would foresee sooner or later we'll want to add more information than just network readiness.
Yeah, I think my big worry about that is today we have pod what is the pod resources API. It's also gRPC and also return all the pods, and we don't want to add readiness information to pod resources for multiple reasons, and one of them is to separate throttling of one endpoint from another endpoint. So if somebody asking about devices too often, we don't want readiness to be affected. If we will start using it for more scenarios, then keeping one endpoint generalized may not be a good answer for throttling issues of endpoint. So yeah, I think, yeah, I kind of like the SIG architecture. Like we need to spell out why exactly we're doing like gRPC versus any REST endpoint that may have potentially have like per client throttling or something like that. So like per service account throttling per se. So we need to spell it out and understand how we'll generalize it in future for more scenarios.
Makes sense.
Okay, any more comments, questions? I think it's a big deal. Like it's one of the, I think it's the second API with a guarantee of backward compatibility from Kubernetes. Not even metrics are guaranteeing anything. Okay, next is Sunny here?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, so generally, like I just have a question about like how should I handle the state of a node having like registration completed to get consumed?
Can you explain the problem a little bit more?
Yeah, so the problem is that like we see that in the node initialization, we set the registration completed, and right now is an internal field and only like you can only access in kubelet. But we are trying to fix an issue in our CSI node that we need to refer to the registration completed status. And then decide what the CSI node initialization should be doing. And then the first question is like, is there any existing accessible status in the node object to indicate that the node has registration completed? And if yes, that's the best, and then we can just consume it. And if not, is there any suggestion around how should we pass around this status?
So when you say registration completed, it's registration with API server, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a node object, it's kind of completed because you have a node object. I'm trying to understand the context a little bit more. So if you have a node object already somehow from API server, it means that node already registered itself with the API server.
Okay.
Do you want some more indication or like earlier indication?
Yeah, if we can have some early indication. Yeah, we want to pass down the registration completely in the kubelet. And basically in the kubelet, how should we like verify that registration completed?
So I think we chatted about this. I think there's a couple options. One, I think since the volume manager, it's part of the kubelet in its node status has like that registration completed flag, right? So I think that's one option that we can use. pass that information up.
So we should somehow pass in that flag in the volume host.
Yeah, I think today we don't expose that Boolean very well, but maybe that's one option. The second option would be somehow to pass the whole node status. I think maybe you could check the ready condition. Proxy. So I think the two options I would think of.
Okay, so is there any existing node status that's definitely can confirm that the node has registration completed?
Yeah, like I said, the node status struct in there, right? That the kubelet uses, it has that internal registration completed. It'll only set that to true if it did complete the registration. Right.
Oh, okay.
So maybe what we need to do, I think the problem is that information is not really accessible to other kubelet components, like other, it's kind of internal to kubelet in some sense, or even internal to kubelet from other packages. So maybe we just need to do a little bit better job exposing that information to other kubelet components, right? So we're just having some type of a wrapper, wrapper function or something that returns the local status that can be injected into the storage CSI place wherever it needs that information.
Okay, so there was nothing blocking, we try to make it accessible to other components.
Yeah, I don't think other components relied on that information today. So maybe that's why we didn't do it. But I didn't see anywhere where we did that today. Well, at least maybe there is somewhere. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see when I was looking over.
Okay, because I see the comments for registration completed. It says something like explicitly making this only accessible to this. So I was a little bit confused.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So maybe we need to have a public method, right? Kind of exported method there that exposes the information, right? So maybe not the flag itself, but maybe we can introduce a new method or something, and then pass that method around.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Sorry for being slow. I think I understand the problem now. So you want registration completed flag inside kubelet code to be exposed to other components. David, if you looked at this code, how do we know to start registering static pods with the API server? Do we check this flag somehow? So if we register as a node, how do we know to not start registering, creating mirror pods for static pods?
Are you asking how do we block creation of mirror pods until the registration is completed, or?
Yeah, so I'm looking for examples when we may need this information, because for downloading anything from API server, we only start doing it when node is actually registered. But for us registering mirror pods, we need to check for this flag first, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm not. I'm not sure exactly where it's synchronized. I know there's a sources for the pod server information. There's all the different sources, the static pods, API pods, etc. They have a sources ready field that's set when that source is ready and is able to get new information. I'm not sure how that's exactly linked up to registration completed. Maybe there's two different mechanisms there. I need to take a closer look.
Yeah, because depending on how, Mike posted some comment. Mike, do you want to, is it the code that doing it, or?
I just put the link to where the code, sets it to true after registering. It's basically just we're done. We registered with the API server as the node. And it's not externalized anywhere. I did a quick search.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're referring to.
Right.
Oh, it's synchronous. So if you fail to register, we'll never return, right? So it's infinite loop, and unless we completed registration, we will keep doing going through this loop.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why we don't need any synchronization, I guess.
Yeah. It would make sense to have an API with a waiter for that being set to true.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm referring. Having some external public function that just returns internally that registration flag completed, and then injecting that wherever we need that information. That sounds like one approach.
Yeah, I think maybe beyond it being a function, maybe it should be a channel of sort, like some identification mechanism. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you for bringing it up. Next one is Vipin.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Just will test the mic.
Loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm Weipeng. So I raised a PR some time ago. Is to kind of fix CPU manager when you define some reserved CPU. They should just exclude from shared pool. So container shouldn't be allocated on those CPU. So due to the current test lane, there's a CPU manager test is failing. So previous reviewer is not confident. So the PR is still kind of pending. So how should we proceed from there?
I think there are two problems, right? First problem is test is failing, and I think Swati is trying to fix this test, and Francesca is helping her. And second problem is Francisca is not sure that this fix is actually changing things in the proper way. I didn't get into details. So he said he's not convinced about this approach.
Yeah.
That's why I pinged Kevin again, because Kevin already approved it. I think, is Kevin on the call? No.
Yeah,
Do you
so
understand what the Francesca concerns? Like, can we try to resolve it here?
According to my understanding, I think he just means the change is too deep, which means he's afraid it might cover all the cases. But I think it's kind of vague, so I don't know. If the statement can be more concrete, maybe I can try to take a look. But as far as I see the code, I think it's not that might be the appropriate place. I don't know if someone can be assigned and sing with me to proceed, to help me to proceed. Because we really want to merge to fix this issue. Yeah, basically. Yeah. Hey, Sergey, how if someone can help with me with that, like either to see if there's any other place I should change the code instead, or how to do some tests to verify that it cover most cases or something, or maybe just fix the test lane. Just need someone's help because I'm kind of new with this thing.
Can you start a thread on SIG Node, and I'll poke some folks and see if they can help, like Swati or someone.
Yeah, so I post couple of message in SIG Node Slack, but no.
Okay, let me find it. Let me find it, and I'll add some folks. Or just CC me there. CC me there.
Okay.
Yeah, ping me there, and I'll add more folks.
Okay, I send a message CCU, so you will follow up, right? And maybe assign some reviewer or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Moreno. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Bruno. Yeah, this failing test line is quite disturbing. I mean, it's new. What happened is in 1.28 we introduced this test line because before we didn't have any tests on multi-NUMA environments. So all the tests we had in upstream was, I mean, we didn't have any tests, so we just relied on Red Hat to test it and give a green light for every PR, saying like, yeah, this PR is fine, like go merge it. And like we decided to change it in 128. We had this test line working for some time, but then it broke, and we're still trying to get it back into greens. So Brunel, if you can help
Yeah,
us,
yeah, I'll see if we
really
can find
amazing.
someone from Red Hat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
much.
I think the issue is that it's just it failed, but it doesn't say why. There's no error message. So yeah,
Okay.
that's why. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
With that, we reach the end of agenda. Is there anything else today? If not, then thank you everybody for coming. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.